last year in October, most of us were at the duly departed dinner. With some of the proceeds from the dinner, we raised money to mark a grave. Now, last week, under the radar, we did another thing, and we haven't posted anything online about it. But the gentleman that we contributed to mark last week was this man, and his name was Shorty Shea. And Shorty Shea was one of the Manson victims. In fact, he's the man that actually Manson was convicted of murdering and is in prison for. Not for the Tate LaBianca murders, but for the murder. He was conspiracy to commit murder with the Tate LaBianca murders, but he actually had a hand in murdering Shorty Shea. And Shorty Shea was buried in a, well, first of all, he was dumped and buried in the woods for 7 years. And one of the other Manson followers, a guy by the name of Steve Grogan, while in prison, was able to identify where he was buried, and in the December of 1977 they discovered his body. And after the proper turn of events at the coroner's office and everything like that for identification, they took him to a it's probably not the right word, pauper's grave, Potter's Field, at Angelus Abbey Cemetery. And up until last week, Shorty was in an unmarked grave. Well, 6 people are on that gravestone, actually. And only one of the people that is buried in that 6-person grave was marked, Matilda West. And this is the plaque. Kimmy Zell actually contributed. It was Troy and Kimmy Zell that actually got the things going, and Scott Grohl as well, that stayed on it, and Kim got that printed, and last week we were able to go to the cemetery and have it installed. Wow. So now Shorty Shea has a marker, and that's due to the nice people at the duly departed weekend and the death hags, and that's pretty cool. So the person we're here to celebrate today is a man named Jonathan Hale. And here we are. Now, Jonathan Hale was born in Hamilton, Ontario. He appeared in over 200 films and television programs. He had sort of he wasn't necessarily a pleasant presence on the screen. He was like a grumpy, stern person, which made him perfect to play bosses and military officers and politicians. One of my favorite stories, though, is that he had this is in the 30s, he had a car and he had a loudspeaker installed in his car and an amplifier, and he'd scream on it at drivers that pissed him off, which I thought was really kind of cool. In real life, I thought that was really kind of neat. But he was in movies like Strangers on a Train, The Fountainhead, Call Northside 777, Dead Man's Eyes, and Boys Town. On television, he was in R.M.S. Brooks, he was in Science Fiction Theater, Joey Bishop Show, he was on Lassie, Loretta Young, Cisco Kid, and The Adventures of Superman. But he's best known for his role as J.C. Dithers. J.C. Dithers from the Blondie films that started in the late 30s, and the Blondie TV series, which ran from 38 until he left the show in 1946. Now I'm going to play just a couple of minutes of Jonathan Hale's clips from different television programs.
Wait a minute. I heard a scream.
Oh, I didn't hear nothing.
Just how far is this cottage?
You might as well know now. There is no cottage. The man and the boy is dead.
You're lying.
And you going to be dead, too.
Where are they? Tell me.
At the hotel, but they're dead.
Kirk, now you and Wilson stand on each side of the door. Okay.
All right.
Now, when Bumstead comes in, get him up here on the desk before he knows what it's all about. Then I'll make the speech and give him the bag. Oh.
Yeah, he ought to be here any minute.
Mary, did you find out about the airplane?
Yes, Mr. Dithers. The airline confirmed your reservation out of Wichita at 5:30.
It's a confounded nuisance having to drive way over there to catch an airplane. Call the barbershop and tell them I'll be right down.
Yes, sir.
Now, where is everybody?
Well, they're in Mr. Bumstead's office, sir.
Oh, they are.
Shh, here he comes now. Get set, boys.
Bumstead! Come on, old Bumstead! Let's keep up on the dance,
What's the meaning of this?
Oh, Mr. Dithers, we're terribly sorry. It's a mistake. We thought you were Bumstead.
You thought I was?
Yes, you see, we're planning on giving Bumstead a surprise gift.
Well, the least you can do is help me down.
Oh, we're steady, Mr. Dithers.
Right down.
Where are our glasses?
Hold him
His
his
glasses.
glasses.
Look at drop.
Glasses.
So I look like Bumstead, do I? That is the crowning insult.
I ought to fire the lot of you!
$1,000. Probably cost you that much, didn't it?
Well, you see, Mr. Dithers, a lot of things happened, and Dagwood was down at the cafe, too.
And when Blondie...
You don't mean you didn't buy it?
No, sir, we didn't.
You see, Mr. Dithers, it was all my fault.
Of course it was all your fault. Nobody in the world could mess up a deal the right way but you. Good old Dagwood. I always said he was a man in a million. Why, I couldn't run my business without him. I guess we've all learned a lesson this time, huh? Well, we get everything straightened out so you can go on your vacation now. Oh, you're a couple of swell kids. See you later.
Goodbye, Mr. Dithers, and thank you, Mr. Dithers.
Have a nice trip.
See you later, Chief!
He's living at the Motion Picture Country Home in Woodland Hills, and he was being treated at the time in 1966 for depression. On February 28, 1966, at 9:30 p.m., he was found dead with a gunshot wound to the head. He used a .38. It was ruled a suicide, and he was 74 years old. Sorry about that. So he was buried here. These plots were owned by the Motion Picture Country Home, and they would provide a grave for people, much like Johnny Arthur when we marked his grave last year. They would provide graves for people, but they wouldn't provide stones for them. So up until today, Jonathan Hale was not marked, and now we will unveil his stone. I just want to say really quick, a quick thank you to a couple of people. First of all, God and the misfortune of others. Because if it wasn't for the misfortune of others, we wouldn't be here, and unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And the people that helped out at the dinner, Dawn, Shannon, Robin Quinlan, Julie Burkett, Kimmy Zell, Erica, Colleen and Jenny, Brian, of course, Aaron Murphy and Craig, and Mr. Gilmore, Jane and Mark especially, and especially Troy. And now we will unveil his stone.
Oh,
It's
beautiful.
beautiful.
Oh.